Let's talk about polyvagal theory and its implications for post-traumatic parenting. There's a lot of buzz around polyvagal theory nowadays. There's some controversy, some people saying that it's more of a metaphor than a theory. There are some misinterpretations of polyvagal theory, but what I really want to unpack is how do we understand the implications for polyvagal theory in post-traumatic parenting? So let's really unpack what polyvagal theory is. So polyvagal theory was created by Dr. Stephen Porges, and he talks about 3 states of the vagus nerve. Now the vagus nerve sort of wanders through our body. The name vagus means wandering in Latin. And what the vagus nerve is meant to do is keep us alive. Its primary function is survival. So there are a lot of ways the vagus nerve does this, but let's first understand the concept of neuroception. Neuroception means our ability to sense whether we are safe or whether we are in danger. And based on what we sense, safety or danger, that signals our body to adapt to either state. So let's start, very often polyvagal theory, let's start with the polyvagal ladder. You're probably familiar, you've heard the term polyvagal. The biggest implication that polyvagal theory has is for understanding the parenting state that I call survival mode. When we're talking about survival mode, we're talking about when we're completely shocked by life event, what we might think of as acute stress disorder. We're shocked. Life events have taken us over. Something terrible just happened. Maybe a terminal diagnosis, maybe a car crash, maybe a war, maybe something personal in our own lives, like a death in the family, a loss. And we go into survival mode, where what we really want to do is simply survive. So if we look at our little Lego, if we look at her face, right, she's just shocked right now, and that's all. When you have a freeze response in the aftermath of trauma, as in acute stress disorder, that is when the vagus nerve is shutting down the transfer of information throughout the body. This creates a sudden loss of energy or motivation, decreased heart rate and blood pressure, shallow breathing, and sort of the sense of emotional detachment and numbness. So let's go through that polyvagal ladder and understand how we get from safe, secure, calm to shut down and frozen. So the healthy normal state, the top of the ladder in polyvagal theory, is known as the ventral vagal state. When you're in the ventral vagal state, your sympathetic nervous system is regulated. You feel safe, at peace, ready to connect with the world. You can think of that state as safe and social. You want to be parenting out of that state. If we want to use another example entirely, another metaphor, imagine you're on a nature walk in the woods, and you're hoping to see a lot of wildlife, and you're gonna be walking through the woods with a loved one, and all is well, and then far off in the distance, you see a bear, and your guide warns you, there are bears out now, and they're a little hungry, so beware, be careful, because there might be a bear. You see the bear, what happens? You go from that ventral vagal state, that calm, safe, social state, to sympathetic mobilization. Suddenly you're on alert. You go into what we call the fight or flight mode. You are ready to do something to meet the danger. There's a bear, it's far away, thank goodness. I need to retreat to safety. I was told how to get from where I am to safety. I saw what may be a bear way off in the distance. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do fight or flight. Hopefully not fight, because I don't know if I could handle a bear, but I'm definitely going to run right now because I'm going to handle the emergency. When we're in a sympathetic mobilization state, our breathing is fast. Our energy levels are very, very high. We're adrenalized. We might, in the heat of the moment, say something we regret, do something we regret, panic into error, right? Because we're in that highly adrenalized, with high levels of cortisol state. Your toddler takes a nasty fall, a car suddenly cuts in front of you, those things that make your heart pound and you're like, oh, and you have to handle the emergency. That's sympathetic mobilization. Can we parent through sympathetic mobilization? Of course. We very often have to. Your toddler falls down, you have to handle the emergency. You're driving your kids to school, someone cuts right in front of you in traffic, you need to continue driving them to school and still talk to them and still treat them the way you want. A lot of times those minor parenting mishaps, those things we do that we really wish we hadn't done, happen when we're in sympathetic mobilization. So you see the beer and you might let loose a string of words that you don't normally use around your kids. You see the beer and you might run in the wrong direction. You see the beer and you might start yelling at your spouse, I told you we shouldn't go down this trail. I knew it, there would be bears. And now your kids just witnessed you and your spouse arguing and fighting, right? Those are the things that, we panic into error when we're in sympathetic mobilization. And can we parent in that state? Yes. Should we parent in that state 24/7? I hope not. That's a very direct route to burnout. That's a very direct route to our children believing the world is a very unsafe, insecure place. But in the short run, yeah, we can parent through that. We may have to. And if we know that there's going to be a lot of emergencies coming up, perhaps we have a chronically ill child, perhaps there's some sort of a disaster going on, there's something scary happening, think of COVID, there's a danger that's going to be lasting, we have to take some steps so that we can lower the adrenaline levels, so that we can get back into safe and social, into that ventral vagal state. We want to climb back up the ladder. We have to figure that out. Sometimes after the need for the sympathetic mobilization, the real shock and panic sets in, and we start adrenalizing ourselves even though it happened yesterday. This is what we call counterfactual thinking in PTSD treatment. It happens when your trauma app in your brain has so much faith in you that your trauma app thinks that you can create a different outcome to something that happened yesterday. So suppose we went down the path, our family went down the path directly towards the beer, and it was really scary and dangerous. And you might start imagining the scene that night. You can't fall asleep. Your brain is turning and churning and turning and turning. And what your brain is trying to do, what the trauma app is trying to do, is instead of going left down that trail, it really wants you to go right down this trail. Problem is, it already happened and we can't undo history. We can't have turned right instead of left because it happened already. But our body, the part of our brain where our trauma app is housed, doesn't know the difference between past, present, and future. So it really thinks that we can turn right instead of left. And then we stay in that sympathetic mobilization and we keep pumping adrenaline and can't fall asleep, can't parent the next day, short-tempered. It's exhausting. So we need to learn how to turn that signal down, and sometimes thanking our brain and saying, thank you, brain. Thanks, trauma app. You're trying to get me to go right instead of left. It would indeed have been a great thing had I gone right and never met that bear than going left and having that terrifying experience with my family. But I did indeed go left. So thanks for the information. I appreciate it. I'm going to go to sleep now. I'm going to do some progressive muscle relaxation. I'm going to ice my vagus nerve. I'm going to take an ice bath. I'm going to take a hot bath. I'm going to drink something soothing. I'm going to eat something soothing. I'm going to watch something soothing, listen to some music that's soothing, whatever works for my body to slowly de-adrenalize. I'm going to do that thing because I need to restore my body's sense of safety so that I can parent tomorrow. But there's something even worse. So those are so far two rungs of the ladder. We have that ventral vagal state, we have that sympathetic mobilization state, and then we have the bottom of the ladder. The bottom of the ladder is the dorsal vagal state. The dorsal vagal state is freeze or shutdown. It's autonomic shutdown. We have low energy. We feel foggy, we feel alone, sometimes we're frozen, sometimes we're literally steering off into space, dissociating and doing nothing. That's the freeze state. And here's the thing, remember that beer that we talked about? So ventral vagal, we're walking in the woods and we know that there might be bears, but it's also a beautiful day in nature and we're safe and social. And then we had sympathetic mobilization where we saw a bear, it was chasing us, we ran, we got home, we slammed the door, we are now safe. It was really, 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 really scary. We have a lot of adrenaline and cortisol and we're shaken up, but it's all good. And now we're in a horror movie. We come home, we lock the door and turn around and we realize the bear lives with us. And sometimes the bear is named mom or dad. Sometimes the bear is dad when he's drinking. Sometimes the bear is abusive step parent. Sometimes the bear is abusive sibling who's really torturing a sibling. The idea is then you live in a chronic state of freeze and shutdown because there is nothing to do. The emergency is here. You can't do anything about it. It's overwhelming and it's constantly there. There is no sympathetic mobilization that will help because when the emergency isn't named mom, then there's no amount of adrenaline helps us escape mom because we live at home. We live with the bear. And people who have lived with the bear their whole entire life find coming out of that dorsal vagal state very difficult to do. Healthy people can easily climb up and down the ladder. Healthy people can, have that real emergency overwhelm freeze response, but very quickly can go to sympathetic mobilization. Oh my gosh, you know what just happened? And then go back to safe and social and go to ventral vagal and be fine. When you've had chronic years of living with a freeze response, it's much harder to climb up and down, back down the ladder. And the first step towards doing that, the first step towards doing that is acknowledging I have lived in freeze my whole entire life. Tina Preen Bryson, who is a collaborator with Dan Siegel on parenting, books like Parenting from the Inside Out, says you can't be the safe harbor for your child if you're also the storm. If you are also the storm, you are going to create that dorsal vagal state that is chronic for a child. So if you grew up in a home where maybe on Monday, mom was really kind and responsive, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, she was really critical and mad, and Friday you got spanked by, dad who was home for the weekend, that's dorsal vagal. And it's really hard then to get out of that shutdown. So rather than berating yourself about what a lazy person you are because you're constantly shutting down, understand that the dorsal vagal freeze state is really difficult to get out of once it becomes chronic. And also understand that it is imperative to learn how to get out of that dorsal vagal state if you're parenting, because your children need you to be safe and social. Your children need you in that ventral vagal state as much as you possibly can be so that you can connect to them, attach to them, help them understand themselves and the world. If parenting is sharing your calm, you need to have calm to share. If you're in the dorsal vagal state, you might appear calm because you're so zoned out and foggy and kind of dissociated that you don't look like you have any emotions at all, but that's not actually calm in the same way that sedation is not sleep. You need real, true calm and real, true calm presence in order to parent. So the thing to understand about the polyvagal system is that it's automatic. It's out of our control. You cannot will yourself from one state to another. You can't get mad at yourself. Why did I go into that state? I'm such a bad mother, such a bad spouse, such a bad friend. When you go into dorsal vagal shutdown, you go into dorsal vagal shutdown. What you can do is start recognizing the signs so you can either try to head it off at the pass or restore yourself afterwards, but the actual shutdown itself is automatic. If that keeps happening, you're in a mode as a parent, you are in survivor mode. And there are people who live years and years and years in survivor mode. There are people who parent and parent and parent in survivor mode, and that really is difficult for their children. Very often parents in survivor mode have children who act out, who are exuberant and wild and difficult to control. I hate those words, but I'm just giving the sense of the kind of child we're talking about. And that's because they're trying to wake mom up, jolt her into awareness. They're trying to get dad out of that zombie-like shutdown state and into something alive. And if negative attention is the only kind of attention I can get, then I'm going to go for that, because it's really scary to have a parent who isn't present. So I'd rather have a parent who's present but destructive than not have a parent present at all. The problem is, of course, having a parent who's present but destructive is not great either. So I can understand the impulse in the child to try to shock their parent awake. I get that. But if you're the parent who's being shocked awake to yell only to go back into that numb, dissociated state and then feel guilt and shame because how can I yell at my kids? I wanted to parent differently than the way I was parented, and I'm perpetuating the cycle. Know that this is common, this happens, and there's help. You can work with a trauma-informed therapist who can teach you how to move up the ladder. You can create a parenting plan that honors your neurology and also allows you to have calm to share with your kids, and also allows you to finally become the kind of present parent you've always wanted to be. If you're a post-traumatic parent and you've always wondered about polyvagal theory and its implications for parenting, and this was helpful, please click subscribe below so you never miss another episode. Please tell a friend about post-traumatic parenting. Our community grows one parent at a time. If you have a question about anything I said, if you have a comment, if you have a different take on things, or if you want to know about the implications for your specific parenting situation, please comment below so I can respond with another YouTube video. If you want to hang out where other post-traumatic parents hang out, check out the post-traumatic parenting community on Instagram. You can find us at Dr. Kozlowitz Psychology. And of course, the post-traumatic parenting book is coming out sometime between January and June of 2025, and stay tuned and check out the Post-Traumatic Parenting podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. Till next time.